Welcome to Wise Owl. This is an unboxing to table ready video. Today I'm going to unbox and convert a C10 shard of the Nightbringer model from the 40k range, and I'm going to turn him into a Nurgle Daemon prince for my Fantasy Daemon army. I've never been fussy about the GW Great Unclean One sculpt, and while I do really like the Demon Prince from Games Workshop, I wanted something that looked a little more Nurgle for my Great Unclean One, or Prince, or even the Kugath Plague Father. And when I saw this model painted up in my local hobby store for a 40k display, I thought with a few modifications, I would be able to make him fit in with my Nurgle Daemon army. So opening up the box, there are 2 sprues and a 40k round base. As I was looking at my sprues, I could see a lot of flash around one arm and the scythe weapon, but it was really thin and it wasn't difficult to clean up. I had a lot more trouble with the other sprue. Along the right front chest of the model, there's a pretty significant mold line, and then another one coming down the cloak. After a bit of scraping, I managed to clean them up, and in the process, of course, I found a lot of bubbles and gaps and miscasts in the fine cast resin that I had to fill in with some green stuff. The next thing I had to do was build up the pot belly that the Nurgle plague bearers have. The C10 model comes with some beautifully defined stomach muscles that really don't match with the other Nurgle models, so I balled up some green stuff and stuck that on, and used some liquid green stuff to kind of blend in the edges and build out the abdomen to make him look a little more bloated and infected. You can see some of the areas that I had to fill in bubbles or minor gaps around the joints or miscasts, and then I clipped a horn from one of my Nurglings and glued that onto the head, and I'll add a little bit of green stuff to make it appear like that horn has pushed through the hood. I decided to try something new for the base. The C10 model comes with a bit of decorative basing. I'm not sure what they're called in 40k, but to me they kind of look like little robotic trilobites. Anyway, I covered them up with green stuff because I'm a fantasy player, and then I decided to try a technique that I've been reading about online about microwaving white PVC glue and applying that over the base, so I thought I'd give it a try. You get this kind of stretched skin look by spreading a thin layer of white craft glue on some parchment paper or plastic cardstock, and then you pop it in the microwave for about 15 or 20 seconds. You'll have to experiment for yourself because microwaves are all so different, but it only took me 2 or 3 test strips, and I found a thickness of glue and a length of time that worked for me. I was really pleased with how this turned out. The glue gets all wrinkled and bubbly. You don't want it to be too dry or you won't be able to spread it over your model, and you don't want it to be too wet because you'll lose all the great detail as the glue dries. But when you've got a consistency that works, you just pick it up with some tweezers or a toothpick and you layer it over the model and then shift it around until it sits where you want it to. It does shrink a lot as it cures, but that's what gives it that pulled, distorted skin look. I was so pleased with the results that I added a small amount of that white glue technique to the belly of the model as well. And then to finish the skin off, I went in with some gel crazy glue and dotted here and there over the skin with some little pustules. These turned out really well too because the dots of glue as they dried kind of popped, and so it looks like there's this burst pimply texture all across the surface of the skin. Then I let the model dry overnight. It takes a while for that white glue to cure, and then the model was ready for priming. So here's the primed model with the first base coat on the cloth and wrappings. I used just regular spray can primer and then 2 thin coats of Vallejo Model Color Pale Sand. And then I washed all the cloth areas with Citadel Griffin Sepia. I put the wash on pretty thick. You can see where it's pooled a little bit, but I wasn't too worried about that because I knew I was going to go back in with the pale sand in the next step and lighten the cloth up, as you can see here, with some highlights so it looks less brown and more like a stained, dirty cotton. Before we go any further with the C10 model, we need to take a look at the color scheme I'll be using. These are the plague bearers from my Nurgle army, Yes, they are pink demons, but that pale pink skin with the purple wash contrasted against the bright green intestines and infections and wounds really pops on the tabletop. I love the look of these guys, and so we're going to continue with that same color scheme with this conversion. It's just a pink skin coat with a purple wash and then yellow on the intestines, overcoated with Tamiya transparent green. So here's the first skin coat. This is just Vallejo model color pink cut with Vallejo foundation white 50-50, and then a second layer with a little more white added in, and then a third layer with a little more white added in, slowly bringing up the highlights. So here I've done a wash with Citadel Leviathan purple. It really darkens up the pink, but that's okay because we're going to go back in now with the same pink foundation white mix. In fact, I've lightened it even a little bit more, and I'll go and pick out all the highlights with a dry brush. The next step is to just hit all of the raised bits, the stomach, the pustules, the wounds, with Vallejo model color deep yellow. And then you go back over all of the deep yellow with Tamiya clear green X25, and that gives it all a very nice sickly glow. And here's the finished model. I used a Vallejo model color black red on the staff and oily steel on the scythe. I did a little bit of a blue wash on the metal just to give it a little bit of shading, and then I did a little bit of highlighting on the horn, gave him some teeth and eyes, and then I spent a little bit of time going over the base. Here's a close-up of the base. That microwaved white glue turned out so well with the yellow undercoat and the transparent green top coat. It just looks fantastic. The photo doesn't really even do it justice. It really looks great. And then I painted up those maggot mounds. It's Vallejo model color basic skin tone. I went over it with Citadel Fugan Orange shade and then highlighted it back up again with the dry brush with that basic skin tone again. I'm really pleased with this base. The white glue just was magic. And that's it, really. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video, my very first unboxing to table-ready painting video. I learned a lot. I hope that the pictures weren't too blurry and that you could see what I was working on. And I hope this video inspired you a little bit to try something new. Thanks again.